What's up, YouTube? It's your boy, Yavo, aka Django 3000 with DB Crappie Fishing and Outdoors. Hey, thanks for joining me. And today I want to come to you guys and talk about 2D sonar. We've talked about this subject before, but we had a couple of guys in the live broadcast chat that wanted to revisit 2D sonar, so I thought maybe that this would be a great time to come to you guys and explain how I interpret 2D sonar and show you how I use it to catch fish. So with that being said, I want you guys to hang there with me till the end as I show you a couple of slides and give you my spiel on how I interpret these graphs. So with that being said, I'll start with the first slide. Okay, if you guys have used 2D sonar, it's something that you first got to understand how the transducer works on a 2D sonar. Well, a 2D sonar, it works just like any other underwater sonar device. You know, it sends out a signal or a ping that's represented as a wave or a sound wave type thing. And as this wave goes out, it spreads out like a ring, like that. Like if you throw a rock in the water, it makes a ring in the water that expands out. That's the same way that this ping works on your transducer. It sends out a ping, and as it goes through the water column, it expands out. And anything that's in that water column just beneath that transducer, it bounces back off and comes back to the transducer. And the transducer registers that interruption as an object in the water, an object or structure in the water. And a lot of times you can see that as represented as a fish or trees or the bottom of the lake on your graph. The other thing you have to understand is, you know, when you're using your sonar, there in your menu, there's several options that you can use in regards to 2D sonar and pinging or scanning objects in the water. You have, depending on your particular unit, you have several different frequencies that you can utilize as you scan for fish. You know, as the picture represents here, is two frequencies. You got a 200 kilohertz frequency and you got an 83 kilohertz frequency. Not saying that all units are like this. You got some units with 400 frequencies and better, depending on what kind you got. But you know, just for time's sake, we're gonna use this representation here. 200, as you can see in the graph, is a faster signal. Means when the transducer pings, it pings back and forth very fast. As it hit, and when it hits the object, it hits the object and comes back very fast. A slower signal, 83 kilohertz, the same thing. It pings down, but it comes back very slowly. And what that is the slower the signal, the wider the range that the signal can bring you information. The faster the signal, the smaller the radius. So when you're using 2D sonar, one of the choices that you have to make is what frequency you're going to use in regards to scanning your lake. If you're in very deep water, you need to use a slower signal, primarily something like the 83 kilohertz. On some fish finders, 200 is going to be slow, but just for sake of the discussion, you'll use something like the 83 kilohertz. And basically what that does is, it's just going to give you a broader picture of what you're scanning in that deep water. In regards to shallow water, or in regards to seeing something with more clarity, you're going to need, or you're going to want to use a faster signal. Just like you're going through, just say you're going through deep water. You're passing over structure where you see the structure on the graph, but you can't really make it out. With that respect, you will want to go to a faster pinging signal, whereas on the 83 you got a broader signal. At 200 kilohertz is going to give you a more detailed representation of what you're seeing under your boat, if that makes any sense. So I had to put that out there so you guys will understand what's actually being done under the water. A lot of people don't even understand what's going on with the transducer, so that's what's actually going on under the water. So once you make a consideration on how you're scanning the water, You just make those options. You just change those options in your settings on your fish finder. Very simple. Moving on. Okay. Most people, when they get their fish finder, they think that this is how the representation of the graph's going to be straight out of the box. This graph or this representation that you're seeing behind me has nothing to do with settings whatsoever. Basically, what you're seeing here is what most fishermen want to see when they scan it for fish. You want to see each fish represented as an arc, just like it shows on the box. Because you know when you see those little arcs, those are fish. Well, what a lot of people don't understand is you're never going to see arcs on your screen unless your boat is in motion. Let me say it again. You're not going to see arcs on your screen unless you're moving in the water column, meaning your boat is moving 3, 4, 5 miles an hour through the water. You're scanning for fish. Well, those fish that you see on your graph are going to look like this. Okay, if you stopped in the water column and fish are underneath your boat, those fish are going to be represented as either elongated arcs or either a long straight line on your graph. Basically, if you see, like the picture you see right here behind me, those are elongated arcs. That's telling you that the boat is moving, but it's moving very slowly. As you can see right there, 0.2 miles an hour, right? It's moving very slowly. So as it picks up the fish, those fish are no longer like tight arcs. They're elongated arcs. Well, if you were to stop in the water column, just stop, and fish are under your boat, say you got one fish under your boat and you stopped in the water column, right? That fish is going to be represented as a line going all the way across your graph. Because what's happening is, as your transducer is pinging, it's pinging back and forth off that fish, just like this right here. And what happens, let me start over here. What happens is your screen moves like this. Your information starts here and it moves here. As it moves to your left, my right, that's representing time. So that fish over time is represented as a long line because the transducer is continuously pinging off of him. Let me go back and show you guys something. One of the most fundamental tools on this graph that a lot of people have but don't use is this A-scope. I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen. You probably can't. But it's basically this thing right here. This area right here. You see it? It's just a slender rectangular object that goes from the bottom of your graph to the top of your graph. And basically what it does is it represents movement under your boat. As lines, let me see if I can show you guys. Right there, you see those lines above me in this white portion of this A-scope? When something is moving under your boat, it'll be represented as a horizontal line in this graph, this part of the graph here. That A-scope is telling you that you got fish under your boat. As your graph moves, as it moves from the right to the left, what you're seeing on this graph right now is what's going to be represented on your graph. But you've already passed over that. You've already passed over everything that you're seeing on this graph right now. It's just telling you just went over all these fish. What you see in that A-scope is what's under you now. Meaning, if you're still seeing horizontal lines in the same area that you saw those fish you just went over, that means you're still over those same fish. So what you're going to do is, as you slow down, those fish that you see on the screen right now, they're going, as you slow down, they're going to go from being arcs to being lines on your screen. And as you stop, all you will see across your screen is a bunch of yellow and purple lines going across there. The yellow, red, and purple on the bottom of the graph, that represents the bottom of the lake. Depending on what graph you're using, Hummingbird, GARMIN, this looks like a GARMIN unit that I'm looking at now. Those colors represent different things on your particular graph. Meaning on a GARMIN, the yellow means a hard target or your transducer is making a firm contact with what's directly below it, meaning the bottom of the water or whatever's in the water column. If it comes back as registering as yellow, that means it's making a hard contact, meaning that bottom is not very soft. It's probably either rocky or solid bottom to some respect. As that color transitions from yellow to orange to purple, that's telling you as it gradiates towards purple, it's telling you it's going from a hard target to a soft target, or it's not registering as hard as the material just above it. Meaning, if you look at the screen here, the hard targets would be representing those fish that's represented as yellow. They're being pinged. They're being pinged directly by that transducer, and because they're the size of the fish they're represented as yellow streaks. Where you got other fish in there that look at the graph, they look like they're the same size as those fish that are yellow, but they're represented as blue or purple. Basically, what the graph is telling you then is that cone I was telling you about. Those fish are being pinged by the transducer, but they're almost outside the range of that cone. They're just on the fringe of those cones. That's why they're not registering as solid as those fish directly under the transducer. Go to another slide. I'm gonna try to make this fast and quick tonight. But like I said, as you're moving through the water columns, those fish that you go over, they're gonna be represented as arcs in the water. The slower you go, the arcs are gonna start elongating, and to the point where if you stop, those fish are gonna be represented as a solid line if they're directly under your boat. Most people, they want to know, when they see material or they see objects that look like they're floating in the water part of the graph, what is that representation? A lot of times when you see a mass of something to this nature here, a lot of times that's how the graph represents bait fish, or how it represents fish that are so tight together in a school that it can't differentiate between one fish or the other. Looking at the size of the arcs in this here, generally you would think that they were bait fish, but looking at the arcs, I could tell that those are actually schooled up fish. If you look at the top of that screen, the top of that mass right here, let me see right here, the top of that mass is yellow, and you can actually make out the arcs in them. Those are schooled up fish. But a lot of times, this, let me see, right here, bait fish will be represented as these big blobs that are just like in the water. So this could be a school of fish attacking bait fish, or it could just be a school of fish that's so tight together that the sonar can't tell exactly what they are. But that's how it's represented on your graph. Okay, on hummingbird units, the same thing. The color scheme may be different. Looks like on this one, red will represent a hard target, or the transducer bouncing off something that's solid in the water, and it's getting a great reading off of it. Primarily, your big fish gonna show up red. Smaller fish will be a variation of orange or yellow. If the fish are showing up green, like you see here, a lot of times, just like I said, they're just outside the range of the transducer. Not directly out of the range, but they're on the fringe. But sometimes the color of an object that's struck by the transducer, or the ping of the transducer, will tell you what's actually under your boat. Red represents a hard bottom. If you see something that's green that's on the bottom like this, a lot of times that'll tell you there's brush down there. So if you're looking for brush piles, or you're looking for grass holding specific type fish, that's how you would know where you are. Very simple. Like I say, you just got to know your particular unit and understand what those colors mean on your particular unit. Once again, hummingbird unit on the right, you got look like a school of bait fish, just look like a ball. But if you take notice, that same school has a lot of red dots and a lot of red. That's telling you that transducer is pinging off something big, and those can't be bait fish. And if you look at it's on this, actually on this side, the clear view version of that same graph is showing you that is actually a school of crappie. So that being said, YouTube, that's how I read 2D sonars. It's not very hard to understand. I was actually giving my cousin a crash course on him the other day. He let it beat him up, but I think he got an understanding of it now. But it's very easy, you know. You fish a lot, you know how these fish move in the water. So just take your know-how and let that representation, let your understanding decipher that representation. There it is. With that being said, YouTube, thanks for joining me. I'm glad you guys came through, and join us next time as we revisit side imaging. And if you guys didn't know, check us out. We have live broadcasts and we talk about these subjects all the time. So with that being said, we see you next go around, man. This is Django with DB Crappie Fishing Outdoors. We out of here. Peace.